So this is all that we had done. We had learned how to calculate enthalpy change if we knew how many bonds are broken and how many bonds are formed in any reaction using bond energy, which is given in the data booklet. Uh, so this is what we did so far. And the thing is, whenever you've got these energy profile diagrams, and we talked about adding a catalyst. What a catalyst does is that it reduces the activation energy of a reaction. So what is the activation energy? That was the question. So activation energy is, there is some amount of energy that is needed to break the old bonds. Whenever you have a reaction like N triple bond N reacting with a hydrogen molecule, the reaction is very difficult to happen. Why? Because this bond is really strong. So if it doesn't break, there is no reaction. Like the molecules can collide with each other with 1,000 times per second. But if this bond over here is not breaking, the reaction will not happen. So there are two things. Whenever you talk about a reaction, you talk about how frequently are the molecules colliding and are the collisions effective or not. So you need to somehow break this triple bond. There are two ways of doing that. One is you can either add kinetic energy, make them energetic so that they bump into each other with a lot of force so that the old bonds kind of get broken. The other way is you add a catalyst. And I talked about transition metals being very good catalyst. I discussed that why are they good catalysts? Because the metals group 1, 2, they like to lose electrons. The non-metals, they like to gain electrons. Transition metals are the ones that are kind of in the middle. They don't really like to lose electrons. You got gold, you got platinum. So they don't really like to lose electrons. Instead, they actually have this very weak attraction for electrons. Like you'll never see gold losing electrons and forming ions. So instead, they have this weak attraction for electrons. So for example, if you add iron, I told you that what it will do is, we discussed all of this. What it will do is that it sees this triple bond, it slightly starts attracting those electrons in the triple bond. And those electrons, they kind of weakly get attracted to iron, which is why the triple bond breaks. So iron helps in breaking that triple bond. Same case with over here. You had a bond over here. There were electrons in that bond. And the iron over here started pulling on those electrons. So the bond disappeared because all the electrons got pulled towards the iron. And when the molecules, they bounce back, they're without their bonds because the bond has been broken. How has it been broken? Because the iron catalyst ended up attracting the electrons in the triple bond. And the iron catalyst does not attract the electrons very strongly. It doesn't like to gain electrons, but it just weakly attracts them. So which is why the bond gets broken, but it doesn't form a permanent bond. You don't get a permanent bond over here. So which is why transition metals, they help you break the bonds. But we discussed all of this in the last class, okay? We're going to quickly talk about homogeneous catalyst, which is that it's a catalyst where the catalyst and the reactants have the same state. So we had started talking about, remember, you just need to have a general idea. So homogeneous catalyst is a catalyst. Remember, you're going to get very simple questions on this. They'll just ask you, what's a homogeneous catalyst? And maybe give one example, that's it. Or what's a heterogeneous catalyst? Maybe give one example for that. But not a very detailed question on this. So I'll just give you a quick description of how a homogeneous catalyst would work. The catalyst and the reactants would have the same state. So we had discussed about this reaction. I gave you this example. It's just an example. I mean, you can get any example. So it doesn't really matter what the example is. You should be focused on what the catalyst would do. So yesterday we discussed that this reaction has a very high activation energy. And the reason it has high activation energy is that both ions are negatively charged. And if both ions are negatively charged, then it's kind of impossible for them to actually even come close to each other. They're not going to react with each other. Why? Because they repel each other. So this negative ion is never going to meet this other negative ion. And the reaction will never happen because the collisions are impossible to happen. For them to collide, they need high activation energy. You need to make this very energetic. You need to make this very energetic so that they are able to overcome the force of repulsion and they can bump into each other or they can collide with each other. So both ions are negatively charged and repel each other. So is this point clear why this reaction is not happening? Is this clear?
Yeah.
So both ions are negatively charged. So it's got very high activation energy. You need to make them very energetic so that the two things can sort of bump into each other. So for example, this molecule is roaming around. It's not going to come close to this. It's not going to collide with it. So next is just one sec. Just a sec. So how would a catalyst work? What you do is you add Fe2 plus or Fe3 plus ions as catalyst. So how would they work? What they'll do is they'll provide an alternate pathway. So what will happen is that we'll give up on this pathway, like kind of impossible to happen. So instead what happens is you add Fe2 plus and Fe3 plus catalyst. What they would do is that the I minus 1 would react with Fe3 plus ions instead. Instead of reacting with the S2O8 ion, it would instead react with Fe3 plus. An alternate route is created. The ions, they turn into Fe2 plus and iodine is oxidized. I minus 1 gets oxidized. And in the next step, the S2O8 2 minus ions, they react with the Fe2 plus ions. And the Fe2 plus ions, they change back into Fe3 plus ions. And 2SO4, 2 minus ions are produced. Now just ignore, don't worry where the equations are coming from. Just remember the general idea. Like how is the heterogeneous catalyst working in the first place? So what's happening is these two ions were not able to react with each other directly. So instead you added a catalyst, which was a homogeneous catalyst because it had exactly the same state. And it created this alternate path. You got a different reaction. I minus 1 started reacting with Fe3 plus, S2O8 ions started reacting with Fe2 plus, because these two were not able to react with each other because they were both negatively charged and they were never going to bump into each other or even come close to each other. So instead, they ended up reacting with the catalyst, which is Fe3 plus or Fe2 plus. The I minus 1 got changed into I2. So you got one of your products. So here is one of your products. And the S2O8 got changed into SO4 2 minus. So in this alternate pathway, you're getting the same two products. You're getting 2SO4 minus 2, you got that. And you're also getting I2. So you got that as well. So by adding this catalyst, you created a completely different reaction, but you're getting exactly the same products. And what's happening to the catalyst? In the first step, the Fe3 plus changed into Fe2 plus, and in the next step, the Fe2 plus got converted back into Fe3 plus. So the net change in the catalyst is nothing. Fe3 plus turns into Fe2 plus, and then the same Fe2 plus reacts with the other one and turns back into Fe3 plus. So that means the catalyst remains unchanged.
सर
Yes.
ये जो आयरन कैटलिस्ट होता है ये सिर्फ सॉलिड स्टेट में ही होता है या तो इसकी लिक्विड स्टेट भी होती है?
नहीं, आयंस जो होंगे they would be in aqueous state.
अच्छा, तो मतलब सॉलिड स्टेट नहीं होती फिर?
मतलब इस केस में सॉलिड स्टेट नहीं होगी, it would be aqueous. ठीक है,
क्योंकि मैं लाइक पूछना ही चाह रही हूँ कि हमें कैसे पता होगा कि अगर हमें एक इक्वेशन दी हुई है इसमें कहा है कि जो कैटलिस्ट यूज होगा वो लिक्विड होगा या बेसिकली वो हेटेरो होगा या होमो, तो हमें
नहीं उसके
मतलब
अंदर
हमें
नहीं
कैसे पता?
उसके अंदर थोड़ा सा क्योंकि रिमेम्बर होगा ये कि you've already, I mean, you'll study a lot of reactions, ठीक है, a lot of places where catalysts would appear, ठीक है, जिस तरह in O levels you studied hydrogenation of alkenes, you did the contact process, ठीक है, तो you did the Haber process, ठीक है, for example this is the Haber process, so in that case when you study those reactions you'll know okay, what is the state of the reactants and what are the states of, you'll never get an unknown reaction like the example that I did over here, they'll probably give you the states. Is the point clear?
Okay.
ठीक है?
Yes.
So it's probably going to be some reaction that you've already studied elsewhere. तो आपको ना वो इतनी टेंशन लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. I mean, you'll get a pretty simple question in this. ठीक है?
Okay.
I mean, for example, I'll just give you an example. Like they might ask you if in O levels you remember this reaction, hydrogenation of alkenes. So in that case, you had an ethene molecule which reacted with H2. These were both gases. Ethene is gas. And hydrogenation happened. For that, you needed a nickel catalyst, which is obviously a metal. So that's a solid. 200 degrees centigrade was the temperature. And it would end up forming ethane. The double bond would go away if you remember this reaction. Okay? So this was hydrogenation of alkene. Formation of margarine can be used. So this was your hydrogenation reaction. So the thing is, in this case, this is a heterogeneous catalyst. So by just looking at it, you'll know that the reactants are gaseous and the catalyst is a solid. So it must be this adsorption, deadsorption thing going on. That the nickel catalyst is the one that's attracting the electrons. I mean, this is what would be happening. Like if they ask you to draw this, so you'll add the whole adsorption, deadsorption thing. You'll tell them that nickel is a transition metal, so it's got this weak attraction for electrons. So if the ethene molecule has a double bond that's kind of strong and it's hard to break, and if the ethene molecule bumps into the catalyst, what the catalyst would do is it will start pulling on these electrons. So the electrons in the double bond, they will get attracted to the nickel. And that's how the double bond would break. Same case with H2. The H2 molecule is coming in. The electrons in the H2 bond, they'll be attracted to the catalyst, and adsorption will happen. And in the next step, what will happen is you'll just copy paste this and you'll just show that. So let me just copy paste this. So most of the questions are going to be very general. They're not going to be very. So the next step, you'll show that the molecules would kind of fly away. The weak bonds will break. So that's your next step. Just a second. It's not loading. Just a second. Sorry, just a second. So what will happen is that the weak bonds will break and the reactant molecules would fly away, bouncing off the catalyst. But as a result, the old bonds have been broken. So now new bonds can be formed. So there's going to be adsorption, which is that the reactant molecules would end up forming weak bonds with the catalyst. And then there's deadsorption, where the weak bonds would break and now new bonds can be formed. Like this H atom could go and fly away and bond with this carbon atom. Is this clear?
सर
Yes.
हाँ जी.
सर आप ये वाला फिर से समझा सकते हैं ये इक्वेशन?
नहीं, equation के
Until start can explain this.
नहीं, पिछला वाला समझ आया था, ये जो पिछला किया था ये वाला.
हाँ जी सर, yes.
तो ये वही हो रहा है ना कि मतलब why do reactions not happen? क्योंकि it's very hard to break the old bonds, right? But that's the main reason why the reactions don't happen. So what do transition metal catalysts do? Okay, they make it easier to break the old bonds. Okay, यहाँ पे you had this double bond, right? So it was very hard to break that double bond, right? So when the ethene molecule came close to the catalyst, so the nickel started attracting those electrons. It pulled those electrons close to it. Clear? Exactly इसी तरह उस पे हुआ था कि why was iron acting as a catalyst? Because iron had, all transition metals have this weak attraction for electrons. तो उसके अंदर क्या हुआ था कि it was very hard to break. It was very hard to break the triple bond that was over here between them. So what did iron do? Iron started attracting those electrons. So those electrons, they got attracted to. So they got attracted to iron. और as a result वो बीच में triple bond जो है वो टूट गया, ठीक है? That became weaker and it broke away. और जब वो molecules they bounce back, the atoms were without their bonds. ठीक है? So that is how iron helped in breaking those bonds between atoms. Am I clear?
Yes sir.
यहाँ पे भी वही हो रहा है कि it's hard for H2 and ethene to react because the double bond is strong. So if you add nickel to it, so nickel, any ethene molecule that comes flying and starts bouncing or colliding with the nickel, its electrons in the double bond will get attracted to nickel, and the double bond would sort of disappear. Why? Because the electrons got pulled towards the nickel atom. और जब वो ethene का molecule, when it bounces back, it's without the double bond. अब क्या होगा? The H atom now has a chance that it can come in and bond with this carbon atom because the double bond is no more there. So carbon के ये electrons or H, I mean, they'll pair up and they'll form a bond over here. Is this clear? Am I clear? So is this clear? बाकियों को Hania, is this clear? Amna? Reid, clear? Yes. So just remember, you're only going to get a very general questions on this, TK. You don't have to be, most of the reactions that you're going to talk about, they're going to talk about, especially when it comes to heterogeneous catalyst, you'll study those reactions in different places. So don't worry about the reactions. Just worry about the mechanism. Like how does a heterogeneous catalyst work? That you have to somehow weaken the bonds. Then the reaction would speed up. Most reactions don't happen because the old bonds are really strong. So you would have to somehow break those bonds. And there are two ways of doing that. You either make the molecules very energetic so that they collide with each other very violently so that the old bonds get broken. Or the other option is you add a catalyst, which is a transition metal, and that pulls on the bonded electrons and makes them weaker. So the bonded electrons get adsorbed onto the surface of the catalyst. The other option is a homogeneous catalyst, which is a homogeneous catalyst most of the time provides an alternate path. कि वो क्या कहता है कि you're doing a reaction this way, and what it will do is that if the reaction is not happening this way, like both ions are negatively charged and then never bumping into each other, both of them are avoiding each other. Okay, if you put I-1 over here, the S2 it gets repelled and moves somewhere else. So the reaction is not happening. So what a homogeneous catalyst would do is that it's going to change the whole reaction. It's just going to create a totally different path. The result is you're going to get the same result, but a completely different reaction would happen. But at the end of the day, you'll get the same exact products. For example, over here, you added Fe2 plus and Fe3 plus. So what happened was that instead of the I minus 1 and S2 reacting with each other, they started reacting with I minus 1 started reacting with Fe3 plus, changed into I2. So you got one of your products. S2H started reacting with Fe2 plus, and you got SO4 minus 2, you got the other product. So a completely different reaction started happening, resulting in the exact same products. And what happened to the catalyst overall it remained unchanged. You had Fe3 plus, it changed into Fe2 plus, and the Fe2 plus changed back into Fe3 plus. So the catalyst remains unchanged. So that's how homogeneous catalyst would work. And can anyone suggest why are these two reactions really fast? What's the reason for that? Anyone, any guesses? Why are these two reacting? Huh?
Opposite charges, so attraction.
ठीक है, exactly. क्योंकि वहां पे issue ये था कि they were both negatively charged, so they're not even colliding with each other. Now they'll be attracting each other, so the reaction would happen very fast because even if the concentration is less, the I minus 1 will attract the Fe3 plus. It's going to pull it close to it and it will react with it. So over here, you got opposite charges, so the reaction kind of speeds up. The alternate path is a lot faster. You got opposite charges. Let's just see, you got opposite charges and so even if they're not even colliding with each other, they'll simply pull each other close to and they will bump into each other because positive attracts negative. So opposite charges, they attract. So you get a much faster reaction. You get more collisions. So that's it. So just remember the general idea of what a homogeneous catalyst and what is a heterogeneous catalyst. Is this clear?
Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
So, in this homogeneous catalyst, all the reactants and the catalyst have the same state. So, iodine and iron are both solid, right? So, is that
No, over here, all of them are aqueous. In this specific case, they're all aqueous. I'll write the state.
okay?
Iodine can be aqueous as well. It could be solid or aqueous. So
Okay.
in
Thank
this particular case, it's all aqueous. Okay? But also remember, most of the questions are going to be very simple questions. And most of the questions would just be that they'll just ask you, for example, you'll study the catalyst in a lot of reactions. Okay? So they'll just simply ask you whether it's a homogeneous catalyst, whether it's a heterogeneous catalyst. And they might ask you about, especially about heterogeneous, like how does it work? So you just tell them that it's adsorption first and then it's deadsorption. So that's how it weakens the old bonds. That's it. So most of the reactions most of the questions would just be 1 or 2 marks. That's it at best. So not a lot of detail. Don't get confused with all this. You don't have to even memorize these reactions. The only thing you just need to know is the concept behind a homogeneous catalyst and the concept behind the heterogeneous catalyst. You don't have to even draw this, like just remember the concept. Adsorption, deadsorption. Okay. Okay. Next is you've got this other thing which is Hanya, if you can speak up and people have questions, so which is why I have to slow down. The next thing is the next one is we can talk about and move on towards definitions of enthalpy change. Now, the thing with enthalpy change is, enthalpy change is the net energy that is evolved in a reaction. You can remember we're done with catalyst and with energy profile diagrams. So it's a net energy that's evolved in a particular reaction. So that is what enthalpy change is. अच्छा, इसमें ये कि you've got all sorts of reactions and the enthalpy changes need to be labeled. You need to give them different names because it's very hard because you're always talking about enthalpy changes of reaction. So you can't always quote a reaction. So for example, we'll start with the first one, which is known as enthalpy change of formation. That's known as the standard enthalpy change of formation. So what happens in standard enthalpy change of formation is that it's a class of reaction. There's a specific definition for this. First thing, why do you need labels? You need labels because you can't really write the reaction every time. Like if I want to communicate someone that there's this particular reaction, it has a particular enthalpy change. So I have to explain to them what the reaction is. So it's a lot easier if I just label the reaction and they'll understand what the reaction is on its own by just looking at the label. So enthalpy of formation is the enthalpy change or the energy change of a particular reaction. It's energy released or absorbed in a particular reaction when 1 mole of a substance is formed from its constituent element. So if any reaction where 1 mole of a substance is formed from its constituent element, the enthalpy change of that particular reaction would be known as the standard enthalpy change of formation of that particular substance. I'll give you some examples. So it's energy released or absorbed when 1 mole of a substance is formed from its constituent element measured under standard conditions. So remember, the conditions are very important when you're calculating enthalpy change. So for example, because the enthalpy change value would change if the conditions are different. For example, you have water, liquid, and you're trying to boil it. So if you're trying to change the state of water so it depends at what conditions you're at. So if you're sitting at 25 degrees centigrade and you're trying to boil it, that would require some energy. But if you're doing the same reaction at, let's say, 1000 degrees centigrade, I mean, the conditions of the reaction are 1000 degrees centigrade. Now you don't need any energy because water liquid would instantly change into water gas without you adding any energy. So remember, enthalpy change or the energy change that is, or the amount of energy that is needed for a reaction to happen depends on what the initial conditions are or at what conditions you're measuring it. So which is why everything, whenever you try to measure enthalpy changes in the lab, you measure them under standard conditions. He always measures them under standard conditions. What are these standard conditions? These are 25 degrees centigrade, 1 atmosphere pressure. And if it's a solution, it's going to be 1 mole per dm cube. Now, 25 degrees centigrade is also known as 298 kelvins. That is the temperature at which all the energy changes are measured. So if you're trying to boil water and there's so you're going to do that at 25 degrees centigrade. Like how much energy would be needed if your starting point is 25 degrees centigrade? I say anyway, so it's the energy released or absorbed when 1 mole of a substance is formed from its constituent element. For example, if somebody tells me that the enthalpy of formation of ethanol has this value, let's say it's minus 100 kilojoules, just a hypothetical value. So the reason why these labels are important is that I can figure out the reaction on its own. So one thing that I've missed actually over here is constituent element, which should be in its standard state. Okay, let me complete the definition just a second. Element in its standard state and measured under standard conditions. Standard state is the state of the element. It's the state of the element that it exists in under standard conditions, like at room temperature. I said, so coming back to this, enthalpy of formation of ethanol, and somebody gives me this value. So the whole point of these labeling was, or assigning these labels to enthalpy changes is that you don't have to remember the reaction. So which reaction is he talking about? Which reaction has this enthalpy change? So it's the enthalpy of formation of ethanol, where 1 mole of ethanol would be formed from its constituent elements in their standard state. So 1 mole of ethanol. So I don't have to write the reaction. But if somebody is going to ask me that, what is the reaction for this? The enthalpy change is for this reaction, where 1 mole of ethanol is going to be formed from its constituent elements. The elements are carbon, and they are hydrogen, and they're oxygen. And the elements need to be in their standard state. The standard state of oxygen at room temperature is O2, and it's a gas. For hydrogen, it's a gas as well, and carbon is a solid. So you got 2 carbons, you got 3 H2s, and you got half O2 gas. So the thing is, a life kind of becomes easier because every time you don't have to tell somebody the reaction. I'll just, like, if I want to communicate this, I'll just tell them that I'm talking about the enthalpy of formation of ethanol, and it has this particular value. So they'll be able to figure out the reaction on their own. They'll be able to figure out that, so the enthalpy change is for this particular reaction, where 1 mole of ethanol is formed from its constituent elements, and the elements need to be in their standard state. So the thing that you need to watch out for is that the enthalpy of formation is always given for 1 mole of a substance. So the substance needs to be 1 mole, and the elements, they need to be in their standard state. So standard state is the state in which the element would exist in its standard conditions, which is room temperature, which is 25 degrees centigrade and 1 atmosphere pressure. Similarly, we can talk about some other thing, like, let's say we've been quoted this value, that there's a table and it says that enthalpy of formation of carbon dioxide has this value. Let's say it's minus 200 kilojoules. So it's minus 200 kilojoules per mole. So which reaction is he talking about? He's talking about a reaction. When he says enthalpy of formation, and there's an F written over here, what he means by that is that 1 mole of carbon dioxide must be produced in this reaction from its constituent elements. The elements are going to be carbon, and they're going to be oxygen, and oxygen would be, they should be in the standard state. Oxygen is a gas, carbon is a solid, and 1 mole of the substance needs to be produced. So the enthalpy change of this reaction is basically your enthalpy of formation of carbon dioxide. So most of the time, remember this, that from now on, they'll not write the reaction. They'll just quote you enthalpy change values. You'll have to figure out the reaction on your own. Okay, from now on, whenever you study enthalpy changes, they'll not tell you which reaction, whose enthalpy change it is. They'll just quote these values and they'll assign labels to it. So this is the first one, enthalpy of formation. So maybe let's do another one. Let's say they talk about enthalpy of formation of ethanoic acid. And they give us some value, that the enthalpy of formation of ethanoic acid has a value of minus 85 kilojoules per mole. So which reaction is he talking about? He's talking about the reaction where 1 mole of ethanoic acid is formed. And that 1 mole of ethanoic acid, the carboxylic acids are liquid. At room temperature, remember everything would be measured under standard conditions at room temperature, is formed from its constituent elements, and the elements are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And they must be in the standard state. And this has to be 1 mole at all cost. So 1 mole of a substance would be formed from its constituent elements. So this would be 1 O2, and there would be 3 H2 molecules and 2 carbon atoms. Carbon is a solid, hydrogen is a gas, and oxygen is a gas as well. So that is enthalpy of formation of ethanoic acid.
Sir,
Yes.
स्टैंडर्ड कंडीशन से ये भी मुराद है ना कि जैसे अगर कुछ एलिमेंट्स डायटोमिक हैं तो फिर मतलब डायटोमिकली लिखे जाएंगे.
हाँ, मतलब स्टैंडर्ड कंडीशन से मतलब है कि the way they're going to exist under room conditions.
रूम टेम्परेचर.
ठीक है. So oxygen would always exist as O2. ठीक है.
okay.
Cl would always exist as Cl2. Remember, group 7 is diatomic, oxygen is diatomic, hydrogen and nitrogen are diatomic. I said, remember, sometimes you would have to go into fractions as well. Like if somebody tells you that, so just remember, from now on, no one will tell you what the reaction is. They'll just tell you this, that the enthalpy of formation of this thing is this. You'll have to figure out the reaction on your own. So similarly, sometimes you would have to go into fractions as well. Like if they talk about enthalpy of formation of carbon monoxide, that it has this value. Just some random value. So how would you, what is the reaction? That 1 mole of carbon monoxide would be produced in this reaction. And it's a gas from what? It will be produced from its constituent elements. The elements are carbon solid and oxygen is a gas. It's diatomic and it's a gas. Now, since you have to keep this as 1 mole because you're always supposed to make 1 mole of a substance, then O2 is going to be, it's going to be half O2. You're going to keep O2 as half because that's how you're going to balance it. So
Sir, हमें इनके state symbols भी लिखने को आएंगे.
Must. State symbols is must. And remember,
okay.
The first question that you're going to get is, they just simply either ask for the definition. So you have to remember the definition of what enthalpy of formation is, that it's the energy released or absorbed when 1 mole of a substance is formed from its constituent element in its standard state, measured under standard conditions. And they might ask you to write a couple of reactions. And every time you have to be very specific. The states are very important because they should be under standard. I mean, the states should be standard states, which is the state that they would exist in under these conditions at room temperature. So every time you have to be really, really careful about this. Okay, so the first question is usually this thing. The second thing is,
So
हाँ जी,
सर हम राइट साइड पे मतलब 2 नहीं ऐड कर सकते मतलब
नहीं कर
आपने लेफ्ट साइड पे लाइक 1 पर अच्छा
हाँ नहीं, but it has to be, क्योंकि by definition it's always 1 mole of a substance is formed. ठीक है, by definition.
सो लाइक जो उन्होंने ऊपर दी होगी फार्मूला में HF के साथ हमने रिएक्टेंट साइड पे वही रखना
कि अगर क्या दिया हुआ होगा,
लाइक उन्होंने ऊपर दिया हुआ है चेंज इन HF जो वैल्यू उन्होंने उधर दी होगी रिएक्टेंट साइड पे हमने वही रखनी लाइक वी डोंट हैव टू चेंज दैट
मतलब राइट साइड पे आप कह रहे हो ना?
हाँ हाँ जी
हाँ ठीक है, एग्जैक्टली, मतलब उसको 1 मोल रखना है. You can't make it 2 moles.
ओके
You can actually make it 2 moles, लेकिन फिर वो definition थोड़ी सी change हो जाएगी. For example, I'll just give you an idea. ठीक है, you can make it 2 moles, but it's not that you can't always make it 2 moles. Let's say I have this reaction H2. अच्छा, it's H2 and plus O2 and it's forming 2H2O. ठीक है, liquid, this is a gas. अच्छा, पहले बताओ कि can I call it the enthalpy of formation? Can I label this enthalpy change? Like this reaction has a particular enthalpy change. अब मुझे बताओ कि can I call it the enthalpy of formation of water? But whatever energy is released, what's wrong with this equation? I mean, should I call it the enthalpy of formation of water or not?
No, because they're gases.
Hydrogen and oxygen are gases under standard conditions. The only problem is that moles. The only problem is that it has to be 1 mole of substance getting produced from its elements. So this one is not the enthalpy of formation of water because 1 mole of water is not getting produced. I mean, you can make it 1 mole. So I can make it 1 mole. So over here, I would have to balance accordingly. So is this point clear? Now it's the enthalpy of formation of water. Okay, so is this clear?
Yes.
So now, what if I don't make it to 1 mole? What if I keep it the same? So I can change the labeling a little bit. What I can do is I can call it that it's twice the enthalpy of formation of water, because in enthalpy of formation of water, you always got 1 mole of water. So if you're getting 2 moles of water, that means the enthalpy change value is twice the enthalpy change of formation of water. It's double the amount. Is this point clear? Ahmed, ठीक है, clear? So I can still call it the enthalpy of formation of water, but it's twice the amount. Because I'm getting double the amount of water in this case. Is this clear? Baki clear? Ausfa, is this clear? Raeed, Wafa, is this clear? So, and similarly, we can do a couple of more equations like this. For example, let's say we talk about the Haber process. You got N2 and H2. So it's elements in the standard states that are reacting. And they're reacting together to form NH3 gas. Now, if I balance it the normal way, it's going to be 2NH3 and there would be 3H2 gas, right? So I can't obviously call it the enthalpy of formation of NH3. I mean, it's kind of close to enthalpy of formation of NH3 because NH3 is getting formed from its constituent elements. Except it would be double the value. Okay, you're getting 2 moles. 2 moles are getting formed. So the energy change would be twice the amount. So it would be enthalpy of formation of NH3, but double the amount because you're forming 2 moles of NH3. Okay, is this clear? अच्छा बस सेकंड चीज एक आखिरी कर लेते हैं just to finish enthalpy of formation. There's one more thing, and that is that it's endothermic, it could be exothermic, it's both. It could be positive, it could also be
सर
negative. Yes.
सर जो आपने हेबर का बताया फिर तो इसमें मतलब हम ऐसे 2 डाल के मतलब लिख सकते हैं, ये फिर सही कंसीडर होता है?
हाँ मतलब my labeling is not wrong over here. I mean this is the enthalpy of formation of NH3 but twice the amount.
ओके
क्योंकि हमने एक NH3 फॉर्म करने के बजाय 2 कर लिए ना, डबल कर लिए. So we've actually did twice as much reaction. So the enthalpy change value would be twice as much. Is this clear? Or agar
यस
if I want to make it enthalpy of formation of NH3, I'll divide everything by 2. This would become half N2, this would become 3 by 2 H2, and this would become 1 NH3. Then it would be just the enthalpy of formation of NH3. Okay? So from now on, just remember, they won't give you the reaction. I mean, they'll always quote you this. They won't tell you what the reaction is. You would have to figure out the reaction yourself. As a second, बस इसको wrap up कर लें. Last चीज है कि it could be endo, it could be exo, because every time, whenever you have an enthalpy of formation reaction, both things are happening. Bonds are being broken, like the oxygen bond needs to be broken. The O2 molecule, the oxygen atoms are bonded together. And new bonds need to be formed. The oxygen atom has to bond with carbon. So whenever you have both things going on, ठीक है, इसको बस wrap up कर लें कि whenever you have both things going on, bonds are being broken, and also at the same time, bonds are being formed as well. Haber process will be यही है कि the N triple bond needs to be broken, and then new bonds need to be formed. So one part is endo, the other part is exo. So it's going to depend. जब आप उसको sum up करोगे ना, so it's going to depend. Like if the endo part is bigger, the overall reaction would be endothermic. If the exo part is bigger, then the overall reaction would be exothermic. So every time enthalpy of formation, you can't really predict whether it's going to be endo or it's going to be exo. It's going to vary from reaction to reaction. Every time it's going to have a different value. Okay, is this also clear? Yes or no? Is that clear?
Yes.
ये मतलब याद रखना important है कि enthalpy of formation, you get a lot of questions. They'll ask you, is it endo or is it exo? So enthalpy of formation generally can have both values. It could be endo, it could be exo as well. ठीक है. So ठीक है, that's the first one. ठीक है, just remember that the 5-6 more definitions we'll do tomorrow. ठीक है. So okay, everyone.
Sir, could you send the board link?
ठीक है, I'm sending it. Just a second. उस पर send करो. I'll send it on the group.
Sir, can you please send me the recording too?
Sure. Just a second. I'll send you the organic one as well. ठीक है. So, okay, take care.
हाँ सर.
हाँ.
सर मैंने पूछना था कि ये लाइक हम कौन सा ऑर्डर फॉलो कर रहे हैं, मतलब क्योंकि मेरी बुक में टोटली डिफरेंट है. लाइक मैं बहुत कंफ्यूज हो गया था.
नहीं, उसमें हम कैलकुलेशन वाला जो पार्ट है ना, वो हम पहले कर रहे हैं.
अच्छा अच्छा.
मतलब जो कैलकुलेशन, मतलब वो जो बाद में फिर वो जो जैसा एटॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर केमिकल बॉन्डिंग होगा ना, वो हम बाद में करेंगे. उसमें कैलकुलेशंस नहीं है ना.
ओके. तो इसके बाद कौन सा चैप्टर है?
इक्विलिब्रियम और आइडियल गैसेस, जिसमें भी कैलकुलेशंस है ना, मैथ इन्वॉल्वड है.
सर आपके पास कोई वो पढ़ा हुआ लाइक जिस पे आपने लाइक ऑर्डर में लिखा हो, सो आई कैन मतलब मैं देख सकूं ताकि पता हो.
मैं लिख देता हूँ, एक सेकंड. मोल्स किया था ना, तो मैं इधर ही लिख देता हूँ
हाँ
यहाँ
जी.
पे. एक सेकंड.
ओके.
यहाँ पे लिख रहा हूँ कि we did moles, energetics, ideal gases, and we'll do equilibrium.
अभी हम आइडियल गैसेस कह रहे हैं.
हाँ,
अभी आइडियल गैसेस क्या है?
एनर्जेटिक्स कर रहे हैं.
एनर्जेटिक. अच्छा ठीक है.
ठीक है.
ओके सर, थैंक यू. हाँ जी.
तो ये पहले 4 तो ये ऑर्डर. ठीक है.
ओके सर. ओके, थैंक यू.
ओके.
अल्लाह हाफिज.